Dear friends, today's talk is the first of a few that I will be talking about the dark night of the soul. I'm sure that as you hear the words, you will feel a little anxious. It is like the title is very creepy, Dark Night of the Soul. Immediately we get very apprehensive. What does it mean? This talk is going to be a kind of introduction. And really, I don't intend to make or to deliver a kind of lecture. Very proper, very academic. But rather to paint a picture, some brushes, so that we can receive some intimations, invitation, maybe to know more about this experience. Some of you may say, what is the point of talking about something so horrible, so terrible? Talking about the dark night of the soul, as if it is Halloween, something related with the spirits, dark night of the soul. Ken Wilber, in one of his books, says, what is the highest stage of unity to which one can aspire? Or what is the nature of some of the higher and highest stages of development? What forms of unity are disclosed in the most developed souls of the human species? That is a very valid question. We have been talking about stages of development. So even for the scientist, the academic, the philosopher, the psychologist, he or she may ask, we know about the average human being, even below average. We know a lot about their behavior. But what about the highest? How is the highest human being? What is the nature? What are the qualities? What is the experience? And for me, as a human being, not to mention as a priest, as a psychologist, I am very much interested. How are those that could be considered the top? And also the question can be asked, who are they that can be considered the top, the highest, the top riches of the human soul? Who are they? Who are the best expression of what it is to be a human being? And Wilber, he said, those few gifted souls who have bothered to look at this problem have suggested that the world's great mystics and sages represent some of the very highest, if not the highest, of all stages of human development. So those philosophers or academics who have bothered to look into this problem, they have come to the conclusion that actually the highest reaches of human development are the mystics and the sages. So purely from the, I will say, as a question of interest, how are they? Who are they? What do they represent? What was their experience? And imagine nowadays we spend so much time, gathering information. For instance, I have a friend of mine, and this is not a criticism, not at all. And I look into his mobile phone, and he has an app to tell him if there is any kind of seismic activity in any part of the planet, any kind of earthquake. And then he thought, yes, because I like these things. It's okay. I don't intend to mean as a criticism, But if we care about earthquakes or many other things, why should we not care about the riches of the soul? It is true that many of us, or most of us, will never be able, to reach, to the levels of these amazing people. So we have to accept, and I do accept it, that they are geniuses. Genius. And that means, for instance, that if someone asks me, to play tennis, I can play tennis. But imagine that I have to play tennis at the level of Nadal, Federer. Even if I were given 20,000 lives and practice every single time, I will never be able to reach at the level of Federer, for instance, because he is a genius and I'm not. Or if someone asks me, Vincent, I want you to learn to play piano. I can learn to play piano, but I want you to deliver or to play for a concert at the level of Vladimir Ashkenazy, for instance. He's a genius. How can I even... But yes, I can play. I may be able to play, but never, ever. So, Saint Catherine of Siena, Saint Francis Assisi, Saint John of the Cross, Johannes Ruysbroek, Saint Teresa, and many others. They are also geniuses, no less than those I have mentioned, no less than Ashkenazy, Federer, or any other famous person. So the question here is not that to reach those levels, but of course what they say, and fortunately, thanks be to God, they have been able to write. They have written. And these are precious testimonies, precious documents, for all of us. What they have written can be very useful for us to understand many things in our limited experience. After I finish the talks on the dark night of the soul, there will come the talks on union with God. And I simply need to stop here, because we cannot just say these words so easily. Union with God. Just the thought is mind-blowing. Union with God. What does this even mean? And yes, these persons I mentioned before, they claim that as long as it is possible for a human being, they have experienced that. They have experienced deep union, communion with the divine. And of course, for them to explain is almost an impossible task. But it is a blessing. And as I say, it will be a tremendous joy for me to talk about that. But without any exception, for all of them, they insist that before this ultimate realization, the union with God, it is necessary to undergo the last trial, the last purification, the dark night of the soul. St. John of the Cross, one of the main authorities in this subject, has a book. And on the first chapters, he dedicates to the dark night of the senses, of which we have been also talking. And if you remember, basically, during the dark night of the senses, God is weaning the soul from her attachments to sensitive and to sensitive feelings. And if you remember, we mentioned about the different level in terms of pride, envy, gluttony, and so on and so forth. So after that, the soul is purified. The soul has her energies gathered, integrated. As a result of this, the soul, the person, enjoys power, competence, strength, sometimes to a very high degree. The person, we can even say, is successful. Why? Because as you can imagine, after years of discipline or hard spiritual work, the soul, the person, collects the fruits. Discipline, hard work, brings a salutary life. So we shouldn't be surprised that many of these people were accomplished superiors, priors, accomplished writers, directors of soul, accomplished masters of the spirit. We shouldn't be surprised of that. And that people will recognize in them amazing spiritual gifts. We are talking about geniuses. And if people admire, Nadal, or a special singer, or a mathematician, then we can say that some of these, mystics were also greatly recognized and admired and sought for. So, you may say that this is quite innocent, because, of course, there is nothing to be surprised about. For instance, now I remember when I was very young, we were gifted with an amazing person, Father Julio Figar. I don't know if I have mentioned to you about him. I believe so, in previous talks. He passed away very young, at the age of 28, in a car accident. But even at such short age, he was widely recognized, if not as a saint, but absolutely yes, as a most spiritual person. People loved him, admired him, and somehow he received tremendous support and tremendous, I would say, the word praise may be inappropriate, but somehow, that he writes, he said that on one occasion, a lady approached him and told him, Julio, if I could have a son like you, I would be totally crazy of joy. Something like that. Imagine someone telling you, wow, my goodness, if I could have a son like you. What happens when we receive appreciation, validation, even praise from others, what happens? You may say that it's normal. It's normal. Is what happens to any good doctor or artist or sportsman, etc. Yeah, it is normal, of course, but is it an obstacle? Is it an obstacle to the total union with God? That is the question. Is it an obstacle to total union with God? What do you think? Take, for instance, me as an example. This very humble person. I am very soon 58. And I live in Hong Kong, in school, where I am in charge of the religious activities, the director of the Department of Religion. In this very room, I counsel people, which for me is a great joy. I receive from them in many cases, a lot of also of recognition and appreciation. Even through these talks, some of you tell me that you enjoy. I feel so happy. So all this feedback, together with a certain degree of detachment from other things, a quiet life, a simple life, I come to see myself as a decent, quite, I will say even honorable, why not? That deserve to be honored, appreciated. I consider myself even smart, gifted. And you may say, what is wrong with that? What is wrong with accepting who you are? Good, that is the question. What is wrong with accepting who you are? The problem is, my dear brothers and sisters, my dear friends, that this is not who I am. This is not who I am. The person that I present to others, even in the name of God, this is not who I am. I don't do it on purpose. I don't try to be a hypocrite. But beneath that, there is darkness that I may even try not to look into that. There is darkness that I strongly refuse to see. There is evil, there is sin that I try to put away from my face. I consider myself as good, at least decent, respectable, but this is not who I truly am. And to get to know who I truly am, I need to go into the dark night, even of the soul. I need to confront my darkness, my evil, my emptiness, my negativity, everything that I found very scary. I need to do that. Can I do it? No, not at all, not in the least. It is necessary for me to do it, but I cannot do it. That is why the dark night of the soul is something that happens to us. It is not that someone says, okay, now I feel courageous, so I will go for it. Never happens like that. All the mystics say that is received in total passivity. is something that comes from God, and the person has nothing to say, just to receive it. And also when it is going to finish, it is not up to us. You know, the trick, the funny trick about the spiritual life is that our ego, that means our sense of being important, special, our ego can even use our spiritual gifts for our own benefit. I can even use, my gifts, my talents, my knowledge, my qualities, and put myself in a pedestal and say, Vincent, not so bad. And you see, people also recognize him. He is a preacher, he's a healer, he's a gift of God to us. And when I hear that, music to my ears. So sweet. I am delighted. So what is happening is that these spiritual gifts, somehow have been used for the benefit of the ego. This dark night of the soul, my dear brothers and sisters, is the greatest mystery on earth, because it is fully and absolutely realized by Jesus Christ on his passion and death. St. Paul said that Jesus Christ emptied himself. Although he was in the form of God. And during his passion, since the very beginning, since the scourging, when he had to accept horrible physical pain, the taking of the cross, and then along the Calvary, the Via Crucis, the way of the cross, when people started to ridicule him, to mock at him, to laugh at him, all his reputation destroyed. Crucified him, look at him, shame on you. And then, when he is stripped off his clothes, that means he had even to surrender his dignity and be exposed to shame. But imagine, that is not even enough. Because for the spiritual person, he relies in God. And having God at our side, at my side, I feel strong. As if nothing can destroy me because God is with me. That makes me stronger, more qualified, enables me, gives me strength more than others who have no faith, who have no resources. I have my faith in God, and that makes me comfort. So imagine what it must be to be deprived of this certitude, of this experience. And this, my dear friends, is the core. That is the core of the dark night of the soul. That those amazing souls I have mentioned before, who enjoyed also amazing spiritual gifts, visions, ecstasies, something absolutely beyond normal, beyond average. All these people who enjoyed what you can say of peace, of love, of everything, the closeness of God, the intimacy with God, all of a sudden they are deprived. They don't have it anymore. Lost. So the feeling is, oh my gosh, God is gone. I am lost. I am condemned. I will go to hell. I have no future. No way that I can be saved. They experience total destitution, total abandonment from God, like Jesus himself. That is why these terrible words, my God, why have you abandoned me? These words became the key words for these mystics. And thanks to these words, they were able to find some consolation. Understanding that if Jesus had to go through feeling even abandoned by God, then that their dark night could also be joined with the dark night of Jesus. This is also the deep meaning of baptism. Be united with Christ in a death like his, so that we may rise with him. And his death was a total dark night of the soul. Because even God, even the sensitive experience of God was denied to Jesus. Nothing. Total darkness. A dark night. It is really scary. And St. John of the Cross talks about this experience as the most scary thing, taking into account that, again, these amazing souls from the highest had to go to the lowest. That will be a good description. From the top to the bottom. From the highest riches of joy, peace, knowledge, confidence, to the most agonic destitution. St. John of the Cross also said that if God does not support the soul, they will kill themselves. Something like this is something atrocious, horrible. Again, it has to be insisted that this is not a common experience, otherwise we will be crazy. But it needs to be said that mystics, not only from Christianity but also from other religions, other spiritual traditions, they go through very similar experience. And that is why for us it's so interesting. What happens in this dark night? What are the fruits? What is it being purified? And then, after the dark night, how is the soul? If horrible is the night, how is the resurrection? So in next talks, I will try to be more in detail, bringing also specific examples so that we can know more and understand more about something that, although we may not know in person, but nevertheless is of the most importance for our spiritual life, for our spiritual experience. May God bless you all. Alleluia.